Welcome to Shutter and Flow. Today we're going to talk a little bit about DSLRs and digital medium formats and kind of what's a little bit on the market right now in terms of medium format, and talk a little bit about when you should use one versus the other. Jeremy just shot with the new Hasselblad, which I'll let him talk about. And before we get into all that, let's backtrack a little bit and talk about why it's still called a medium format, even though it's not a medium format.
I mean, now they've at least gotten it to the sensor size is truly what a medium format was. Before, it used to always be cropped. But the best way to think about it is it all goes back to film size, just like everything in Photoshop goes back to darkroom stuff when you look at things. 35 millimeter film, and then you had medium format film 120, and then you had large format beyond that, 4x5, 8x10, everything. So the first sensors could only be made so big. I oddly remember talking to someone about this a long time ago, that how the digital sensors were made by whatever company made them. There were a few of them. For whatever reason, they made them round. Like that was how they could be made. So if you think about that, they have to be cut down into the shape of what you see on a camera. The early ones were not full 35 millimeter because you think about a round circle, you can only cut so much. They tried to get the most out of it, as many rectangles out of a round thing. So they started off cropped, then they got to full 35 millimeter. That was probably what the 5D around that time would do. The Canon 5D and Nikon and whatever else could do a full frame, what you would actually shoot in a 35 millimeter, which all this really matters because of lenses. If you get a cropped sensor and put a normal lens on it, you're really not shooting as wide as you think you are. Does it really matter? To some people, yes. You're cropping in, essentially, of what you're seeing. So around that same time, there were these medium format cameras, which was the standard for shooting high-end portraits, fashion. Like, so you had the big one was the Mamiya RZ, and it shot a 6x7 frame, big, nice big lenses, everything. The glass is nicer than a 35 because it's just bigger. And then they came out with the 645, which is a slightly cropped version, so you could get more shots on a roll of 120 film.
It was 2 more shots or something. It wasn't a crazy amount. If nobody has ever shot 120 film and has never loaded film backs or been on set where you have to load film backs, the amount of work that went into loading the backs in order for the number of shots that you got, you wouldn't imagine how much extra work it took.
Yeah, I mean, for a while they even had 220 film, which was just 120 film,
Double in length.
basically 2 rolls of it onto one roll, which they quit making completely. And yeah, you would get 12 to 18 shots per roll. So it was very time consuming, but I will say, just quick aside, you shot with more thought and you didn't overthink it. Like you didn't just like fire away. You would like really think about your shots before you hit that button. So there were these great cameras that people missed when they went to digital, and they wanted to shoot digital. So they found ways to make digital backs to go where the film back would go.
Was it just phase that, I mean, everyone shot with phase backs back in the day, but there were other companies making digital backs.
Hasselblad
right?
had theirs. What is now called phase. It was a different company at some point. It's changed a few different times. So yeah, there were a few different options, but essentially what they did was make it where you could replace the film back that clicked on with a digital thing. But
And
again,
tether.
they couldn't make the sensors big enough at the beginning. Like I remember our first one that I remember shooting with, we even had this crazy adapter that would make it fit on the RZ, which the RZ is a mechanical camera. It is not electronics, it was made to move film through it. But they found a way to do it, and it was a square sensor. And it was like a simple square, and it really cropped in to what you were doing. So it was fine, but it was always clunky, and it never really tethered properly, and you had too many adapters, and it became more of a nightmare than it was worth.
Plus, the old version of Capture One would crash every 5 shots back in the day, like the
Yeah.
very early versions. Yeah.
Oh, I remember working on Capture One. I feel like 3 was the first version I worked on, and we would crash it constantly.
Constantly.
Luckily, when we were working at Turner at that time, and we were buying all the stuff early, we were early adopters in it. So we had like a direct line to Capture One and could talk to them. They've added stuff at times because we were talking about it with them, which was great. So over time, they made those sensors bigger and bigger. And then Phase, the digital back company, actually bought Mamiya and made their own camera. They basically took the 645 camera, made it nicer and a little bit bigger than 645 actually, and made their own digital back to go onto it, which starts working better. Everything kind of flows a little better. Capture One's all part of that now. It's all one big group that does that. So that was the thing, and it had its purpose. You still have to shoot slower. You're going to get more fidelity, obviously. You're getting much bigger sensor, much more dynamic range.
At the time, the quality of the images coming out of a digital back were phenomenal compared to anything you would shoot with a DSLR. I mean, it was night and day.
Yeah, it was a drastic change. Since then, I do feel that the 35 millimeter size, and now it's all mirrorless. It's no longer like even Canon has quit putting the mirror in there for almost all of theirs. It's just that's all transferring that way because you can save space in the camera. You can add more stuff to it. It has caught up drastically as far as the quality goes. But there's still times where you want that extra fidelity and that extra just depth. And I think the lenses also make a big difference. You're dealing typically with bigger glass that's nicer made. When you get into that medium format world, everything's just upped a little bit. It's like only the people who are going to spend the money on these things, they get the quality behind it too. So now we've gotten to the point where Hasselblad, Fuji, a few others have started coming out with a mirrorless medium format camera. So that's like the phase we've moved into now, where it's like even smaller and less, but still having that full quality with it. So, which leads to the question, what do you really need that for? Like, what is it, the real purpose of it? They're selling it like Hasselblad, like the one up here. I have it right here. I rented it to use for a shoot because it was like architecture type thing. And I wanted it really big file. They kind of advertise this camera as a travel landscape, beautiful scenery, super dynamic range. All of that is what they're advertising it for. But I do think it has a lot of potential as a portrait camera when you're doing high-end portraits for key art and things like that. After spending a day with it, it definitely is an adjustment to it shoots a lot slower. If you're used to shooting with a Canon or a Sony or whatever it is, you can pop off some frames if you need to. This is at most 3 frames per second, and I don't even think it's really going to do that, to tell you the truth. Like, that's an ideal scenario. I even tried it. I was on set 2 nights ago for Turner or TNT Sports. So it was NHL and TNT, and then there was women's college basketball, and then they were recording TNT on ESPN in the next studio over, so we did a big group shot with everyone. And I wanted to see how it would do in a low light studio setting. And it did well. I've always noticed that the medium format stuff tends to, when you take the ISO up higher, doesn't always do as well
Doesn't
as
hold
the
up as
smaller
much.
sensor. And I'm not sure why necessarily. I guess the processing, or I need to look into that more.
It may just be the size of the files that you're getting and the processing that the software and the camera has to do. It's not built for that, you know?
Yeah. So for me, I think that people, if you're gonna need, why you would need back to the question, why would you need a medium format camera? High end fashion stuff can look well. Portraits, for this Hasselblad, like the landscape stuff that you see coming out with it, it's really impressive. The dynamic range you can get and the things that you can do with it. Um, I've seen people use them. Some of these can be used really well for studio cameras. If you're doing really high end, like think of like a watch ad or things like that, because they have these built in, at least the phase camera has a built in focus stacking where you can program, like, say you're macro on a watch and you want to make sure it's all in focus all the way. You can program the back end and the front end and hit a button, and it will take all the pictures in between those two to then be
Yeah.
stacked
And
together
stack
into one
them, yeah.
photo. So it's really higher fidelity stuff, because that's the other thing. You're going to spend a lot of money on these.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. So how much right now is the Hasselblad on I think on B&H it's around 8,000, right? For the body, give or take.
7,400 is the body, which oddly somehow came down from the previous one. Like, this is the version 2. So this is the X2D2. And somehow it came out cheaper than the first one, which was surprising, especially the world we live in with
That
tariffs and
usually
everything
doesn't
else.
happen, yeah.
Yeah. So, but then the lenses are equally not that expensive, but there's plenty of $4,000 lenses for the different ones. Like, there's a few that are a little cheaper, but to do it right, you're gonna spend, if you're buying a kit of this, you're minimum spending 12 grand as like your starting point.
Yeah, and that's just a body and one lens, right? So if you're thinking of whatever, the newest Canon that you're going to buy, you're going to spend a fraction of that in order to get the same thing.
Yeah. And it's really about what you want it for.
Yeah. I think
I,
obviously if you're shooting fashion, if you're shooting really high-end key art, you're in the studio, you're controlling the lighting, so you can shoot at a lower ISO. It's not a spray and pray tactic of I'm just going on location somewhere and shooting a bunch and seeing what I get, but I'm really controlling the shot. I think there is a use for it, and especially because you are getting those higher dynamic range images, higher fidelity, larger file sizes, where if something does need to be cropped in, you can crop in and not worry about all of a sudden degrading the image. And if it's going to print still, which is rare now, but if it is going to print for some reason, you're probably still going to end up with a much better file to start with shooting with something like this. But the cost, it doesn't always warrant it. If you're shooting for something that you know is going to web, right, which most things that most people are shooting nowadays are going to web, you may not need this type of camera or wouldn't even want to rent it for a shoot.
yeah. We're talking about the file size. I just looked it up. So a raw file that I shot yesterday was 200 and let's see, 212 megs.
So that's about 4 times the average file size of a raw file, right?
Yeah.
That's
So I'm pulling
pretty
up one
big
from my
difference.
Canon. My Canon is 40s, 50, somewhere in that
Yep.
range. So
So
yeah.
yeah, 4 times, which is considerable. Also, if you're thinking about, imagine you have a studio and you own a camera like this, you spend the money on it and you're shooting a lot, it is going to completely overwhelm the amount of data storage you need.
But at the same time, you shoot a lot slower. You're not firing away. So that's where I could see for like higher end celebrity portrait, that world could be very useful. But then you have to balance I have 5 minutes with this person. Do I want to spend it waiting on the camera and taking my time, or just really keep shooting and going? It's always a balance there that you have to decide what's worth it for you. I
I
did
think
use it.
architecture might be a good place for it, because in architecture you obviously end up with files that need to be straightened a lot, especially if you are just shooting a regular standard DSLR. So many times those files have to be straightened and then cropped in considerably in order to straighten depending on what you're shooting. So a larger file size, especially when you are setting up the shot, you're not in a hurry, you don't have to shoot, might actually, if you are getting a lot of work as an architecture photographer, it might be worth renting one of these and testing it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I used it yesterday. And I'm very lucky that we have capture integration, which is one of the best places to rent, purchase digital backs. They own the website digitalback.com or digitalbacks.com. They had it. They've been around that long that they got it at the beginning. And it's right here nearby, and I know the people, so I rented it for the shoot. And I was in our subway, it's called MARTA, here in Atlanta, and I was shooting in there. So it was basically an architecture shot, because it was trains moving and blur of people and all of that. And I was on a tripod waiting patiently the whole time. So I didn't need to like sit there and go quick and do all of that. So it was perfect for that. But because then the night before I had already picked it up, when I went to go work on set, I was like, I'll try it on set. And then I did a group shot of all the talent for TNT Sports, which was, Wayne Gretzky and Shaq and Charles Barkley and Candace Parker. All these people were there. Well, I did this before with, I had done a group shot like this, and I had Shaq walk up, and I'm on a ladder. And I was like, put your hand out like you're doing a selfie, but I'm going to use my camera and hit the button. So we did that. And once it's out, I'll share it on this. So basically I'm on a ladder holding this Hasselblad, and I had a couple lights and strobes and everything. I'm curious if it could have been the world's first 100 megapixel selfie, is what it really comes to.
Well, especially with Shaq's giant hand in there.
Yeah. It is massive and ridiculous. And I added to my collection of him giving me the finger, because I have many of those. So it worked really well for that. But even then, I know it was a limited amount of time, and I probably only shot 12 frames of that, where if I was using my Canon, I could have gotten double that amount of frames.
Right. And here's the thing, if you're shooting, let's say, key art, and you know that things are going to be composited, moved around, you know that you're going to swap heads, you might swap some bodies out. More frames do lead to the ability to do that. But at the same time, there's the trade-off of better files, better starting point.
Yeah. And look, we've come such a long way with the technology and files looking better, that I know a lot of key art photographers that they will judge it by what type of shoot it is and decide if they rent the digital back or not, and deciding like how much time they're going to have. Do they have a dedicated day to have all the talent, or is it while they're shooting and they're going to have a few minutes? So you have to find that balance of what's right for you. But I definitely enjoyed this camera. I'm not sure if I'm going to spend the 14 grand to buy it yet, but I'm going to have to sell quite a few things for that to happen.
Yeah. Trade some gear out. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for listening. I think if you've never shot with a medium format camera, even film, that's definitely worth renting something just to play with and go get some film developed. And then try out shooting with a digital back or rent a Hasselblad for a
I'll
day.
tell you, this new one, that was one thing I will say about this Hasselblad. It was so easy. I mean, look how small it is.
It's incredibly small.
Like the actual body is nothing. It felt so comfortable to like walk around with, and it definitely, it's like the most ridiculous high-end point and shoot camera. That's
For
100 megapixels.
something that's that small that shoots a 200 meg file, it's kind of nuts.
Yeah. So there were some times that I would like, oh, that could be a good, if we went on another crazy hike, I'm like, I could see taking some amazing pictures with that.
You
on
could
a
take that
hike.
up on a mountain. No problem.
Absolutely. I'll do that.
Yeah.
And look,
you just
someone
don't
just
want to drop it.
someone just flew a drone all the way up Everest. Did you see that?
No, I haven't seen it.
I will send that to you. Someone made it all the way to the summit with a drone.
Well, if your drone crashes up there, I'm assuming it's just lost for forever.
Yeah, you're not getting
Yeah.
that back. All right.
Thanks,
Have a
everyone.
good time. Thanks.